Nathan called me into the boardroom with Christine from HR. Your position is being restructured, he said, avoiding my eyes. Effective in 2 weeks, your role will be consolidated under Bryant's leadership. Bryant, the 32-year-old from a failed startup who once asked me what database normalization was now in charge of the entire platform I'd built from scratch. They appreciate your contributions, Christine added robotically. Bryant brings a fresh perspective. Translation: younger, cheaper male. When I asked what came after the transition, she paused too long. We're exploring options, but can't guarantee anything. Translation: start job hunting. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. I walked back to my desk in silence. Everyone looked away. At my station, I pulled up my original employment contract, the one I'd paid a lawyer to review when I joined 12 years ago. Section 9. All software systems and code developed by employee shall remain the intellectual property of employee. Company is granted a non-exclusive royalty-free license, which terminates automatically upon termination of employment, unless due to documented performance issues. I owned everything. Every line of code. Every system running their $200 million a year business. And for 12 years I'd filed copyright registrations. Every module, every major update. The latest renewal? 6 weeks ago. Called my sister. They're pushing me out, I said. I need to talk to Alex. That night over dinner I showed my brother-in-law, the employment attorney, my contract and records. He read Section 9 then looked up. You own it. All of it. Then what do I do? He smiled. Let them fire you. Then we send a cease and desist the minute your employment ends. We sat at my sister's dining table, normally for celebrations, now a war room. I walked Alex through my contract, the IP clause and 12 years of copyright registrations. His expression sharpened. You own it, he said. All of it. The contract only gave them a license, I clarified, which terminates if they fire you without cause. He tapped his pen. Any performance issues on record? Nothing. My last 3 reviews said, exceeds expectations. They even gave me a raise 8 months ago. Then this is termination without cause. He leaned back. How dependent are they on your systems? Completely. Without them they shut down in 6 hours. Lydia whistled. And they're handing it all to some kid who doesn't know what database normalization is? That's the plan. Alex stood. Here's what we do. You stay professional for the next 2 weeks. Document what they ask, be flawless. Meanwhile, I'll draft a cease and desist. The second your employment ends, we send it. They lose access to everything. They'll fight it. Let them. The contract is clear. Your registrations are current. They'll have to negotiate. What should I ask for? He smiled. Whatever they're desperate enough to pay. The next 2 weeks were surreal. Bryant shadowed me but absorbed little, fixated on modernizing the platform. Wouldn't it be better to rebuild? He asked. That old code handles $200 million a year at 99.9% uptime, I said. Rebuilding would take 3 years with 10 senior devs, and even then you'd miss undocumented edge cases baked into the logic. He frowned. Nathan said you'd document everything. I document architecture, not 12 years of institutional knowledge. That doesn't fit in 2 weeks. Well, we'll figure it out, he said, confidently, cluelessly. On my last day they held a perfunctory goodbye lunch. Nathan praised my contributions. Christine handed me a severance packet and a non-compete. I'll have my attorney review it, I said. Her smile tightened. It's standard. Still. I packed my desk into 2 boxes. A photo, a jade plant, a certificate, an award plaque. 12 years of crisis calls and midnight deployments. Gone in 2 cardboard cubes. At 5 p.m. on a crisp October Friday my employment ended. I drove straight to Alex's office. He held the cease and desist letter. Last chance to back out, he said. Once we send this there's no turning back. I know. We emailed it at 6:03 p.m. to Nathan, Christine and General Counsel Eleanor Vasquez. Pursuant to Section 9 of my employment contract, the company's license to use my software has terminated. Continued use constitutes copyright infringement. Cease all use immediately. I went home, changed every password and activated the kill switch I'd built into the system. By 6:47 p.m. every login screen read, "License expired. Contact system administrator." I turned off my phone and slept, deeply, peacefully, for the first time in months. Saturday at 9 a.m. I powered it back on. Notifications flooded in, 47 missed calls. 132 texts. 86 emails. Nathan, call me. What the hell is this? Bryant, systems are down, bug? Christine, urgent, discuss your letter. Derek, sales clients are furious, help. Eleanor, general counsel, we believe there's been a misunderstanding. I called Alex. They're dead in the water, he said. No orders, no payroll, no customer data. They'll negotiate. Sunday, Nathan's voicemails turned hostile. This is extortion. We'll see you in court. That evening Alex called back. They want to meet Monday at 10. Claim it's work for hire, that your contract doesn't override copyright law. Are they really seeking an injunction? They're bluffing, Alex said. Your case is solid. They're bluffing, Alex said. I spoke with a copyright litigation specialist. Your case is rock solid. The contract explicitly reserves your ownership, you've maintained registrations for 12 years and they accepted those terms the whole time. No court will override that just because they're upset. So what do we ask for? What do you really want, Paige? I thought about it all weekend. I want them to understand what I built has value. That I had value. That they made a mistake. We can make that happen. And money. Enough that I never have to work for someone like Nathan again. Enough to launch my own consulting firm with real leverage. Give me a number. I did the math. $200 million in annual revenue, $200 per hour consulting rate, 12 years of work. $3 million. $1 million for full ownership transfer after 3 years. $2 million for a 3-year consulting contract to ensure a smooth transition. Alex raised an eyebrow. That's aggressive. Every day offline costs them $300,000. It's already been 3 days, that's nearly $1 million gone. My offer is generous. I like how you think. I'll draft the proposal. See you Monday at 9:30. Monday morning I wore my navy suit, tailored, professional, and the pearl earrings my sister gave me for my first senior role. I looked like exactly what I was. Someone who knew her worth. Alex met me in the parking lot, briefcase in hand, expression unreadable. Negotiate, don't argue. Stay professional. I'll handle the law, you're the technical expert. And remember, you hold all the leverage. Inside the executive boardroom, Nathan looked wrecked. Wrinkled shirt, loosened tie. Bryant sat pale beside him. Christine had her tablet ready. Eleanor Vasquez, general counsel, held a stack of documents. At the far end, 2 strangers radiating authority. Board members. Ms. Donovan, Eleanor began, we believe this can be resolved reasonably. I hope so, I said. Your cease and desist claims ownership, she continued, but under copyright law, employee-created work is work made for hire. It belongs to the employer. Your contract can't override federal law. Alex didn't flinch. 17 U.S.C. Section 101 allows parties to modify work made for hire by written agreement. Section 9 of her contract states clearly, all software systems developed by employee shall remain the intellectual property of employee. That's not ambiguous, it's enforceable. The language is unclear, Eleanor countered. It's not. Alex slid a copy across the table. One board member leaned forward, an older woman with silver hair. I'm Catherine Mills, board chair. I've reviewed the contract. Mr. Hartley is correct. We accepted these terms when we hired her. Nathan snapped, this is hostage-taking. She's demanding millions for systems we paid her to build. She's enforcing her rights, Alex said. She's not demanding, she's negotiating a new license. Eleanor, what terms? I spoke for the first time. 3 things. 1. Formal acknowledgement that I built these systems and was terminated without cause, ending your license. 2. A 3-year consulting agreement for $2 million to train your team. 3. Full ownership transfer to you after 3 years for $1 million. Silence. 3 million. Nathan said flatly. A bargain, I replied. You've already lost nearly $1 million in downtime. Rebuilding would take 3 to 5 years. Even if you could replicate the undocumented business logic, you'd still need someone like me to bridge the gap. My offer is the cheapest, safest path. This is extortion, he hissed. This is contract law, Alex said. She could walk away and let you figure it out alone. Catherine turned to me. Professionally, how long to rebuild? Minimum 3 years, I said. Realistically 4 or 5. And you'd still need my expertise during that time. The consulting route is far less risky. Can you restore access today? The other board member asked. He was younger, maybe 50, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen several emergencies. Within 1 hour of signing an agreement, I said. Eleanor pulled out her phone, stepped away from the table. She spoke in low tones to someone for several minutes, then returned. We need time to discuss this internally. Can you give us the room? Alex and I waited in the same lobby where I'd sat for my interview 12 years ago. The furniture was different now, more expensive. Everything about Peak Innovations had upgraded over the years, fueled by the platform I'd built. How do you feel? Alex asked quietly. Nervous. Angry. Vindicated. All of it. You're doing great. Stay strong. They're over a barrel and they know it. 45 minutes later, Eleanor came out. We'd like to make a counteroffer. Back in the conference room, the energy had shifted. Nathan looked like he wanted to flip the table, but Catherine had clearly taken control. Here's our position, Catherine said. We agree that your contract is enforceable and that we terminated the license when we ended your employment. We're prepared to offer a 2-year consulting agreement at $1.5 million total, plus a one-time payment of $750,000 for permanent ownership transfer of all systems. $2.25 million total. I looked at Alex. He gave the smallest nod. $2.5 million, I said. 2-year consulting agreement at $1.2 million, ownership transfer for $1.3 million. And I want Bryant removed from any role involving my systems. Nathan's face went red. You can't dictate our staffing decisions. I can dictate who has access to my intellectual property, I countered. Bryant demonstrated in 2 weeks that he doesn't have the expertise to maintain these systems. If you want a successful transition, you need someone competent managing the process. Catherine looked at Nathan. Bryant can be reassigned. That's not an issue. Fine, Nathan bit out. And one more thing, I said. I want a public acknowledgement. Company-wide email from Nathan stating that my contributions were undervalued and that ending my employment was a mistake. Absolutely not, Nathan said. Then no deal. I stood up. You can rebuild from scratch. Paige, Catherine said carefully. Surely we can find a compromise here. That is the compromise, I said. I could ask for $10 million. I could demand Nathan's resignation. I could drag this out in court for years while your company hemorrhages money and customers. Instead, I'm asking for fair compensation and professional acknowledgement. That's not unreasonable. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the HVAC system. Write the email, Catherine told Nathan. We're not going to let pride destroy this company. Nathan's jaw worked. He looked at Eleanor, who shook her head slightly. No help there. Fine, he finally said. Draft it now, Alex said. We'll review it before we sign anything. Nathan pulled out his laptop with visible reluctance. He typed for several minutes, his fingers striking the keys harder than necessary. Finally, he turned the screen toward us. The email was grudging but adequate. It acknowledged that my contributions had been significant, and that the decision to restructure my position had been reconsidered in light of operational needs. It stopped short of calling it a mistake, but the implication was clear. Not good enough, I said. Rewrite the second paragraph. I want explicit acknowledgement that my expertise was undervalued and that you should have handled my transition differently. You're enjoying this, Nathan said. I'm ensuring I don't get screwed again, I replied. Write it. He rewrote it. The new version was better, acknowledging that my technical expertise and institutional knowledge were not adequately valued, and that the company regrets the manner in which the employment transition was handled. Acceptable, Alex said. Now let's discuss the contract terms. The negotiation took another 3 hours. Every clause, every contingency, every detail had to be specified. Payment schedule, deliverables, termination conditions, confidentiality requirements, non-disparagement clauses. By 3 p.m. we had a complete agreement. Alex and Eleanor had worked out the legal language. Catherine had approved the financial terms. Nathan had signed off, though he looked like it physically pained him. "One last thing," I said. "I want it in writing that I'm not bound by any non-compete. I'm free to consult for other companies, including your competitors." "That's standard in our agreements," Eleanor said. "Make it explicit. No ambiguity." She added the language. Alex reviewed it. We both signed. "When can you restore access?" Catherine asked. "Give me 20 minutes, I said. I went out to my car, pulled out my laptop, connected through my phone's hotspot. The system administration panel loaded quickly. I reset the master passwords, reactivated the licensing modules, verified that all services were running properly. At 3:47 p.m. on Monday, October 30, 2023, Peak Innovations regained access to the systems that ran their entire business. My phone buzzed immediately. Messages from the IT team, from Derek in sales, from various people throughout the company. "It's back up. Thank God. Everything's working again." I forwarded the confirmations to Alex and Catherine. Access restored. All systems operational. The first payment, $750,000, hit my account the following morning. The remainder would come in installments over the next 2 years, but seeing those numbers in my bank account made everything real. I'd won. Nathan's email went out Wednesday morning to the entire company. I wasn't on the distribution list anymore, but Janet forwarded it to me with a simple message: "Holy shit." The response was apparently immediate and intense. People started reaching out. Former colleagues, industry contacts, even a few journalists who'd heard about the situation through professional networks. "Is it true you locked them out of their own systems? Did you really get millions? How did you have the leverage to make them apologize?" I didn't comment publicly. But privately I felt vindicated in a way that money alone couldn't have achieved. The consulting work started the following Monday. I showed up 3 days a week, worked with their new technical lead, a woman named Olivia Chin. Competent, experienced, humble enough to know what she didn't know. "I read through the documentation you left," she said during our first meeting. "It's incredibly thorough. But I'm sure there are things that aren't documented, things you just know from working with these systems for so long." "There are," I admitted. "That's why I built in 2 years for transition. We'll go through every major module, every integration point, every quirk and workaround." "I appreciate that. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry about what happened. You shouldn't have been pushed out." It was nice to hear, even if it didn't change anything. Bryant, I learned, had been reassigned to the marketing technology team, far away from anything I'd built. He'd apparently been vocal about the situation, calling me vindictive and unreasonable. Nobody seemed to be listening. Nathan avoided me completely. We were never in the same room if he could help it. On the rare occasions we passed in the hallway, he looked through me like I was invisible. Catherine, on the other hand, made a point of checking in monthly. "How's the transition going? Any concerns?" "Olivia's excellent," I told her. "She'll be fine once we complete the knowledge transfer." "Good." "And Paige, I want you to know that I've reviewed our entire technical hiring and retention strategy. What happened to you is unacceptable. We're implementing changes to ensure it doesn't happen to anyone else." It was something. Not enough, but something. By month 6 I'd developed a routine. 3 days a week at Peak Innovations, 2 days building my own consulting practice. Word had spread in the industry about what happened. Some people thought I was a hero. Others thought I was difficult, vindictive, the kind of person who'd hold a company hostage. I didn't care much about either characterization. What mattered was that companies started reaching out. Organizations that wanted someone who understood not just technology but the business implications. Someone who documented meticulously. Someone who understood the value of intellectual property protection. I registered Donovan Technical Consulting in month 7. My first client was a mid-sized logistics company that needed to overhaul their warehouse management system. My second was a healthcare startup building a patient data platform. By month 10 I had 4 active clients and was turning down work. By month 18, I'd hired 2 junior developers to help with implementation work while I focused on architecture and client relationships. The second installment from Peak Innovations came through on schedule. Another $750,000. My accountant helped me structure everything properly, set up retirement accounts, invest wisely. I bought a house. Not a mansion, but a comfortable 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood with a dedicated office space and a garden where I could grow actual plants that weren't succulents. The 2-year mark arrived faster than I expected. Olivia had mastered the systems. She'd even made some improvements, optimizations I'd wanted to implement but never had time for. The technical team at Peak Innovations was stable, competent, no longer dependent on me. The final payment cleared. $1.3 million for complete ownership transfer of all the systems I'd built. I signed the transfer documents in Catherine's office. Nathan wasn't there. He'd left the company 6 months earlier, taking a position at a competitor. I'd heard through the industry grapevine that it wasn't entirely voluntary. Board pressure apparently. "Thank you for everything," Catherine said as I signed the last page. "You handled this with more grace than I think I would have in your position." "I handled it the way the contract allowed me to," I said. "That's not grace. That's just understanding my rights." Still, we learned a lot from this situation. About valuing expertise. About contract negotiation. About not taking people for granted. She paused. "I hope there are no hard feelings." I thought about that. Were there hard feelings? Yes. Nathan had tried to push me out after 12 years of dedicated work. He'd undervalued my contributions and assumed I'd have no recourse. But I'd won. Completely, decisively, financially. The hard feelings had been processed through legal channels and converted into a very satisfying sum of money. "No hard feelings," I said. "Just lessons learned." I ran into Bryant at a technology conference 8 months after the consulting contract ended. He was presenting on modern architecture patterns, recycling slides from presentations I'd seen online. He saw me in the audience and lost his place mid-sentence. Recovered, kept going, but the confidence was gone. Afterward, in the networking session, he approached me. "Paige. Hey. How have you been?" "Excellent," I said truthfully. "My consulting practice is doing well. How are things at Peak?" "I'm actually not there anymore," he admitted. Moved to a different company about 4 months ago. The marketing tech role wasn't what I wanted to be doing." "I see," I said neutrally. "Look, about everything that happened." He shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't realize the situation. Nathan made it sound like you were being difficult, like you were holding things up. I didn't know you actually owned all that code." "Most people don't read contracts carefully," I said. "I learned too." "Yeah." He looked down at his conference badge. "I learned a lot from that situation too. About intellectual property. About understanding what you're stepping into." It was as close to an apology as I was going to get. I decided to be generous. "Good luck with your career, Bryant. Take the time to learn the fundamentals. They matter more than the latest trends." He nodded, clearly relieved to escape the conversation, and moved away. Janet from marketing found me at the hotel bar that evening. She'd left Peak Innovations 6 months after I did, landed at a competitor with a substantial raise. "I heard what you did," she said, sliding onto the bar stool next to me. "The whole cease and desist thing. Getting millions. Making Nathan apologize. It's legendary." "It was just contract enforcement," I said. "It was brilliant." He ordered a gin and tonic. "You know half the technical staff quit after you left, right? They saw how the company treated you and decided they didn't want to stick around to see if they were next." "I didn't know that. Olivia's good, but she's managing a skeleton crew. They've had to outsource a lot of development work. It's expensive and messy." She took a sip of her drink. "You broke something when you left. Not just the systems. The culture. People realized they weren't valued." I thought about that. I hadn't intended to break the culture. I just intended to protect myself, to enforce my rights, to not be taken advantage of. But maybe those things were connected. Maybe standing up for yourself showed other people that they could stand up for themselves too. "How's your new job?" I asked. "Amazing. They actually listened to the marketing team. Can you imagine?" She laughed. "What about you? I heard you started your own firm." "Donovan Technical Consulting. We're small but growing. 4 employees now, thinking about hiring 2 more next quarter." "You hiring marketers?" she asked with a grin. "Are you applying?" "Maybe. Send me the details. I'm serious. We exchanged business cards. Hers was from her current employer, sleek and expensive. Mine was simpler, just my name and credentials, but it represented something I'd built entirely on my own terms. The consulting practice continued to grow. By the end of year 3, I had 8 employees and had to move out of my home office into actual commercial space. Nothing fancy, just a small suite in a professional building with a conference room and dedicated desks for everyone. I hired Janet 6 months after that conference conversation. She built out our marketing strategy, helped us position ourselves in the market, brought in clients I never would have found on my own. You know what makes this place different? She said during a team meeting one day. We all know exactly what we're worth. We all have clear contracts. We all understand our intellectual property rights. Nobody's getting screwed here. That had been intentional. Every person I hired got a comprehensive contract that explicitly addressed ownership, compensation, benefits, termination conditions. I paid competitive salaries and refused to rely on equity promises or we're a family rhetoric to justify below-market rates. My employees owned their work within reasonable bounds. The company had licenses to use what they developed, but if someone left, they could take their expertise with them. No non-competes, no golden handcuffs, just fair terms and mutual respect. That's the goal, I said. Nobody should have to go through what I went through to get fair treatment. Year 4 brought a major milestone. We landed a contract with a Fortune 500 company to overhaul their entire enterprise resource planning system. The kind of project that could define a consulting firm's reputation. The project manager they assigned to work with us was efficient, detail-oriented, and familiar. It took me a moment to place her. Christine, former HR director from Peak Innovations. Paige Donovan, she said when we met for the kickoff meeting, and I couldn't read her expression. I wondered if our paths would cross again. Christine, this is unexpected. I left Peak about 2 years ago. Joined this company as VP of Human Resources. When I heard your firm was bidding on this project, I recommended you. That was genuinely surprising. Why? Because what happened with you taught me something important, she said frankly. We treated you poorly. I was part of that. I sat in that room with Nathan and watched him fire someone who'd built the entire technical infrastructure, and I didn't speak up. I didn't question it. I just did my job as HR director, which was to protect the company from liability. He paused, looked uncomfortable. But protecting the company from liability isn't the same thing as doing what's right. You were right to enforce your contract. You were right to demand fair compensation. And you were right that Nathan was a terrible manager who didn't understand the value of the people who worked for him. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully. I've changed how I approach HR because of what happened with you, she continued. I push back now when executives want to make stupid decisions about valuable employees. I make sure contracts are fair. I advocate for proper succession planning and knowledge transfer. Because watching your company nearly collapse when you locked them out was one of the most stressful experiences of my career, and it was entirely preventable. I agreed. So I'm recommending your firm because I know you're competent, ethical, and you won't cut corners. And personally, I'm hoping we can work together professionally. What happened at Peak doesn't need to define our relationship going forward. I considered that. Christine had been complicit in my termination, yes. But she'd also just acknowledged it openly, explained how she'd changed, and given me a major contract. People could learn. People could grow. I'd like that, I said. Let's start fresh. The Fortune 500 project took 18 months and was wildly successful. It led to 3 more major clients, all referrals from Christine's network. By year 5, Donovan Technical Consulting had 22 employees and revenue in the high 7 figures. I hired Olivia away from Peak Innovations to be my VP of Technical Operations. She'd done excellent work there, but the company was stagnating under new management. They'd brought in a new CTO who wanted to replace everything I'd built with a commercial off-the-shelf solution, despite Olivia's protests that the custom system was actually superior. I can't watch them dismantle what we built together, she told me over lunch when I made the offer. The new CTO doesn't understand the business requirements. He just wants something shiny he can put on his resume. Then come work for me, I said. Help me build something better. She accepted. Peak Innovations called 6 months later. The off-the-shelf solution had failed spectacularly. Data migration issues, functionality gaps, integration problems with their vendor systems. They were hemorrhaging money and customers. Catherine, still board chair, made the call personally. Paige, I know this is a lot to ask after everything that happened, but we need help. The new system isn't working. We need someone who understands our business, our requirements, our history. You need the old system back, I said. We need expertise. Your expertise. Can your consulting firm take this on? I quoted them triple my standard rate. They accepted without negotiating. Olivia led the project personally, working with a team of 4 developers from my firm. It took 6 months to unwind the disaster and get them back to functional operations. Not back to my original system, that ship had sailed when they decommissioned it, but to something stable built on similar architectural principles. The project bill was $2.8 million. Peak paid it. Nathan, I learned from Catherine during one of our project status calls, was no longer in the industry. He'd flamed out at 2 different companies after leaving Peak, got a reputation for being difficult to work with, and had eventually left tech entirely. Last I heard, he was doing real estate, Catherine said. Probably better for everyone. Probably, I agreed. Year 6 brought another turning point. A major tech publication ran a feature article about consulting firms that were changing how the industry worked. Donovan Technical Consulting was profiled prominently, with a particular focus on our employment practices and intellectual property policies. The article included quotes from several of my employees about why they chose to work for us. I know exactly where I stand, one developer said. No ambiguity, no surprises. Paige treats us like professionals who deserve clear terms and fair compensation. I've worked at places that promised equity and never delivered, a project manager said. Here I get paid well in actual money and I know what I'm building. That's worth more than empty promises. The article also included a brief mention of what had happened at Peak Innovations. Not the full story, but enough context to explain why I'd structured my company the way I had. Ms. Donovan's experience being terminated from a previous employer after 12 years of service, despite having built the company's entire technical infrastructure, informed her approach to contracts and employee rights, the article stated. She settled with the company for an undisclosed sum after enforcing intellectual property rights that gave her leverage to negotiate favorable terms. The article tripled my consulting inquiries in the following month. Some were from companies legitimately interested in our services. But many were from individual developers and technical professionals who wanted advice on protecting themselves. I started getting emails like, I'm negotiating a contract with a startup. What clauses should I include to protect my intellectual property? I built a critical system for my employer, but I'm worried about being pushed out. What are my options? My company wants me to sign a non-compete. Is it enforceable? Should I negotiate? I couldn't respond to all of them personally, but I saw a need. A gap in the market for education and resources about technical professionals' rights. I started a newsletter. Know Your Worth. Contract and IP rights for technical professionals. It covered employment contracts, intellectual property law, negotiation strategies, industry standards for compensation. The subscriber list grew to 10,000 people in 6 months, 20,000 by the end of the year. I began speaking at conferences, not about technical architecture but about professional advocacy. How to read contracts. How to negotiate effectively. How to protect your work. How to know when to walk away. The tech industry relies on skilled professionals being too humble or too scared to advocate for themselves, I said during a keynote at a Women in Technology conference. We're taught that passion should be enough. That we should be grateful for opportunities. That asking for fair compensation is somehow mercenary or unprofessional. I paused, looked out at the audience of several hundred women. That's garbage. You are professionals with valuable skills. You deserve clear terms, fair pay and respect. And if a company won't give you those things, you deserve to walk away with what you built. The standing ovation surprised me. Afterward, dozens of women approached with their own stories. Situations where they'd been undervalued, pushed out, taken advantage of. Many were still in those situations, unsure how to proceed. I gave them what advice I could, but mainly I listened. Because that's what I'd needed 12 years ago when Nathan fired me. Someone to witness what had happened and confirm that it was wrong. Year 7 I wrote a book. Owning Your Work. A Technical Professional's Guide to Contracts, Rights and Fair Compensation. Covered everything I'd learned the hard way. Contract negotiation, intellectual property basics, employment law principles, documentation strategies, when to fight and when to walk away. The book was published by a major tech publisher and became a surprising bestseller in the professional development category. Not Harry Potter numbers, but enough to matter. Enough that people started recognizing my name beyond just the consulting work. I did a podcast interview about the book, and the host inevitably asked about the peak innovations situation. That must have been incredibly stressful, she said. Going up against a company like that. Weren't you scared they'd crush you legally? I was terrified, I admitted. But I was more scared of letting them take what I'd built without a fight. I'd spent 12 years being careful, documenting everything, maintaining my rights. I'd planned for this possibility even though I'd hoped it would never happen. What advice would you give to someone in a similar situation? 3 things. First, read your contract. Actually read it word by word. Understand what you're agreeing to. Second, document everything. Every project, every contribution, every decision. Third, maintain boundaries between personal and professional. Keep your work separate from the company's work where possible. Register copyrights if appropriate. Protect yourself before you need protection. And if someone finds themselves already in trouble, already pushed out or undervalued, get a good lawyer. Understand your leverage. And don't be afraid to use it. Companies make decisions based on cost-benefit analysis. If it's cheaper to treat you fairly than to fight you, they'll treat you fairly. You just have to make sure the math works in your favor. The podcast episode went viral by tech podcast standards. Hundreds of thousands of downloads. It led to more speaking invitations, more consulting clients, more people reaching out with their own stories. Year 8, I hired a dedicated person just to manage the education side of the business. Workshop facilitation, online courses, resource development. We created a comprehensive program for technical professionals on protecting their rights and negotiating effectively. Donovan Technical Consulting expanded into Donovan Professional Group, with separate divisions for consulting services and professional education. We were at 35 employees and growing steadily. Not explosive growth but sustainable growth. The kind that came from doing good work and building a solid reputation. I bought a bigger house. Got a dog. Started dating someone I met through professional networks. A patent attorney who understood intellectual property obsession. Began to build a life that wasn't defined entirely by work, though work remained central. The money from Peak Innovations had been invested wisely. Between that and the consulting firm's success, I was financially secure in a way I'd never imagined possible. Not billionaire wealthy but comfortable. Free. Able to make decisions based on what I wanted rather than what I needed. I traveled to conferences in different countries. Spoke to technical professionals in Europe, Asia, Australia. The issues were universal. Undervaluation, unclear contracts, companies taking advantage of passionate people who didn't know how to protect themselves. Year 9 brought a full-circle moment. A small startup reached out looking for help building their enterprise platform from scratch. The founder was a woman in her late 20s, brilliant but inexperienced with the business side. During our initial consultation, she mentioned she'd been working on the core technology in graduate school before founding the company. Do you own the intellectual property? I asked. Or does the university? She looked confused. I built it, so I own it. Not necessarily. Most universities claim ownership of IP developed using their resources. Did you check your student agreement? Your research grant terms? Her face went pale. Oh God. I didn't even think about that. We spent the next 3 hours going through her documentation. Turned out she did own the core IP barely. She'd been careful to develop the critical algorithms on her personal laptop, outside of university facilities, without using grant funding. But it was close. You need to clean this up immediately, I told her. Register copyrights. Get a formal IP assignment from the university if needed. Clarify ownership before you bring on investors or partners. Because if this becomes ambiguous later, it could destroy your company. How do you know all this? She asked. I told her the story. Not the full version but enough. How I'd built a platform, been pushed out, enforced my rights and turned it into a career teaching others to protect themselves. I want to do it right from the beginning, she said. Can you help me? That's what we do. We worked with her for 6 months. Set up her corporate structure properly. Wrote employment contracts that were fair to everyone. Designed her equity compensation system to be transparent and equitable. Built a technical infrastructure she actually owned and understood. 3 years later, she sold that startup for $80 million. She sent me a bottle of champagne and a note. Thank you for teaching me to value my work. Year 10 since the peak innovation situation, I got a letter. Not an email. An actual physical letter delivered to my office. The return address was from Nathan Spencer. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. My assistant, hovering in the doorway, asked if I needed anything. I'm fine, I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. The letter was handwritten. 2 pages. Dear Paige, I'm writing this because my therapist suggested I make amends with people I've harmed in my career. I'm not sure if this letter will mean anything to you, but I need to say it anyway. I was wrong. About everything. I was wrong to push you out after 12 years. I was wrong to undervalue your contributions. I was wrong to assume your work was interchangeable and replaceable. I was wrong to be dismissive during your termination meeting. I was wrong to try to fight you instead of negotiating fairly when you enforced your contract rights. Most of all, I was wrong about what leadership means. I thought it meant making tough decisions and moving quickly without sentiment. I thought it meant always projecting confidence even when I didn't understand something. I thought it meant keeping people on their toes, keeping them slightly insecure so they'd work harder. I was wrong about all of that. What happened with you taught me lessons I should have learned earlier. That expertise has value. That institutional knowledge matters. That treating people fairly isn't just ethical, it's practical. That contracts mean something. That you can't just assume people have no recourse when you treat them poorly. I've been out of the industry for several years now. After peak, I had 2 other positions that ended badly. The pattern was similar. I didn't respect the people who worked for me. I made decisions without understanding the technical implications. I prioritized appearing decisive over actually being right. Eventually, I had to accept that the common factor in all those failures was me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not sure I deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand what I did wrong and I'm genuinely sorry. You deserved better. The company deserved better. Everyone I worked with deserved better. I read your book last month. It's excellent. And painful to read, knowing I'm part of the cautionary tale that informed it. But I'm glad you wrote it. The advice is solid. I wish I'd understood those principles when I was actually managing people. I'm working in real estate now. Residential sales. It suits me better. Shorter relationships, clearer transactions, less opportunity to do lasting damage through bad management. I hope your consulting firm continues to thrive. I hope you're doing well personally and professionally. And I hope that someday when you tell the story of what happened at Peak Innovations, you can include that I eventually understood how badly I messed up. Sincerely, Nathan Spencer. I read the letter 3 times. Was it enough? Did it change what had happened? Did it make the stress and anxiety and fighting worth it? No. But it was something. I filed the letter away in my desk drawer and went back to work. That evening, I video called my sister. Lydia appeared on screen in her kitchen, cooking something that smelled good even through the digital connection. How are you doing? She asked. You look contemplative. I got a letter from Nathan today. Your old boss Nathan? The one who fired you. That's the one. He apologized. Said his therapist suggested he make amends. Wow. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. Honestly, I don't know. It's nice that he recognized he was wrong. But it doesn't change anything. I still had to fight for what was rightfully mine. I still spent months stressed and anxious. I still had to completely rebuild my career. But you did rebuild it, Lydia pointed out. Better than before. You own your own company. You're financially secure. You're helping other people avoid what happened to you. None of that would have happened if Nathan hadn't been a terrible boss. That's a depressing silver lining. Welcome to life. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best outcomes. She stirred whatever she was cooking. Are you going to respond to him? I don't know. Maybe. What would I even say? Thank you for the apology. I accept it. Go to hell. Whatever feels right to you. I sat with that question for several days. Finally, I wrote back. Not a long letter, just a brief note. Nathan, thank you for your letter. I appreciate the apology and the acknowledgement of what happened. What you did was wrong and it cost me significantly in terms of stress and professional disruption. But it also forced me to advocate for myself in ways I might not have otherwise. The experience informed how I built my own company and how I teach others to protect themselves. I hope you've genuinely learned from those experiences and that you treat people better going forward. That matters more than any apology to me personally. I don't know if I forgive you. I'm still working on that. But I accept that you've grown and changed, and that's worth something. Page. I sent it and moved on. Year 11 brought new challenges and opportunities. The consulting firm expanded into cybersecurity services. We hired specialists, built out new service offerings, landed government contracts that required security clearances and rigorous vetting. The professional education side continued to grow. We launched an online platform with courses, templates, resources. It generated passive income that supplemented the consulting revenue nicely. I spoke at a TEDx event about workplace power dynamics and professional rights. The talk was titled, Know Your Worth: How One Contract Clause Changed My Life. It got over 1 million views online. The comments were mixed. Some people called me a hero. Others called me vindictive, greedy, petty. Some said I was justified. Others said I'd held a company hostage and ruined good people's livelihoods. I'd learned to ignore the noise. What mattered was the private messages from people who said the talk helped them. Who said it gave them courage to negotiate better terms. Who said it helped them understand they weren't powerless. Those messages made everything worthwhile. I ran into Catherine Mills at an industry gala last year. She'd retired from the Peak Innovations board but remained active in the business community. Paige. I was hoping to see you here. She gave me a warm hug. I've been following your company's success. You should be very proud. Thank you. It's been quite a journey. I owe you an apology too, she said. I was on the board when Nathan terminated you. I should have questioned that decision more aggressively. Should have insisted on better succession planning. Should have recognized your value before the crisis forced us to. You made it right, I said. You could have tried to fight me legally. Instead, you negotiated fairly. That mattered. Still, we learned expensive lessons from that situation. The company has completely revamped how they handle key personnel. Better contracts, better retention strategies, better respect for institutional knowledge. She paused. Though honestly, Peak has never been the same since you left. Olivia did excellent work, but the culture changed. People became mercenary. Everyone negotiating for maximum leverage, nobody trusting that loyalty would be rewarded. Can you blame them? I asked. After watching how I was treated? No, she admitted. I can't. We broke something when we pushed you out. Some things can't be repaired. It was a sobering thought. I hadn't intended to break company culture. I just wanted fair compensation for my work. But actions have consequences, and companies that treat people poorly create environments where nobody trusts anyone. Today, 12 years after Nathan fired me and 11 years after I locked Peak Innovations out of their systems, Donovan Professional Group employs 53 people across 3 divisions: technical consulting, cybersecurity services, and professional education. We generate approximately $15 million in annual revenue. Not enough to make me a billionaire, but more than enough to build the life I want. I own my home outright. No mortgage, no landlord, nobody can take it away. I have investments that will sustain me through retirement even if the business disappeared tomorrow. I have autonomy, security, freedom. More importantly, I have satisfaction. Every person who works for me has a clear contract that protects their rights. Everyone knows exactly what they're worth and what they own. Nobody will be surprised if things change. Nobody will be pushed out without recourse. I've helped hundreds of technical professionals negotiate better terms, protect their intellectual property, and understand their leverage. Some of them have started their own companies. Others have stayed at their employers but with better compensation and clearer roles. The book is in its 3rd edition. The newsletter reaches over 100,000 subscribers. The online courses have been completed by tens of thousands of people globally. I'm not famous. I'm not on any billionaire lists. I'm just someone who stood up for herself once and turned that experience into something larger. If you've made it this far in the story, you know what I want to say. If you've ever been undervalued at work, if you've ever been pushed out after giving everything, if you've ever wondered whether you had any power in a situation where you felt powerless, you're not alone. Read your contracts. Document your contributions. Understand what you own. Know your worth. Protect yourself before you need protection. And when someone shows you they don't value you, believe them. Then make sure it costs them appropriately. The platform I built for Peak Innovations is still running, still processing hundreds of millions in transactions annually. They own it now fully and completely. But every time they log in, every time they generate a report, every time they process an order, they're using something that almost brought them to their knees because they didn't appreciate what they had. I built something new instead. Something I control completely. Something that helps other people avoid what happened to me. That's worth more than any amount they could have paid me to stay. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in standing up for yourself. Smash the like if you've ever had to fight for what you deserved. Drop a comment below with your story. About the boss who underestimated you, the company that took you for granted, the moment you realized you had more power than they wanted you to know. Because we're not alone in this. And the more we share these stories, the harder it becomes for companies to get away with treating talented people like disposable resources. Thanks for listening to mine. And remember, know your worth, protect your work, and never let anyone convince you that standing up for yourself is somehow unprofessional. You deserve better. We all do.